Good morning! Well, today it's all about diorama details. I'm going to start with a little bit of scratch building and then some kit bashing, and then I'm going to show you how I detail one of my scenes in my World War I trench diorama, Captain Livens Lab. Let's start with scratch building first. Scratch building means I'm taking just raw materials and I'm bending them, I'm cutting them, I'm soldering them, I'm building them up, and I'm shaping them so that I can create something that looks like something else. In this instance, it's the Livens Large Gallery Flame Projector. While this looks a little complicated, it's probably a little easier to build this rather than something that's very recognizable, because then people can scrutinize it a little bit more because they know what whatever you're trying to build looks like. So in this instance, though it looks complicated, it's actually really easy to build. When it comes to kit bashing, it's a little bit different. And that is, you're taking parts that are maybe from a different kit, or I mean, it wouldn't even have to be from a kit, but maybe it's a bottle cap or something like that. But you're bringing these together, lots of times built with a scratch built element to build your parts and build your details. Next, I want to show, the different details I did for a specific scene. This one's going to be for Captain Livens Lab. The thing that I really wanted to concentrate on in this was to kind of make it look like this was the think tank. This is where all the stuff was really conceived from. Other areas they're building it, but here they're trying to figure out all the stuff that they don't know. So I wanted it to look like they had everything they needed in here with like this library so they could solve these incredible problems. These bookshelves are scratch built, as well as the books. So the little shelves there are made from balsa wood, and then I switched over to styrene and cut thin strips, and each of these little tiny ones that I'm cutting off of those strips, those will be books. Not really knowing how many books I need, I figured I'd finish these bookshelves. Here I'm using really super thin CA glue, and that soaks into the wood real quick and does a great job for something this small. To keep my shelves straight as I'm gluing them in, I made this little spacer, and I just, glue in a shelf, set it in there, glue in the next one, and it keeps them all even all the way up to the top. I kept putting books in the shelves, and then I'd knock it over, so I finally just decided, look, I'll glue them together, created the groupings I wanted, and that was perfect. That worked out great. What I'm doing here is I've got this little toothpick sharpened down to I guess it kind of looks like a little flat tip screwdriver. And I've just dipped that in a little Tamiya paint, and it works like a stamp. And that gives me all the gold on the binding. And I think it came out great. One thing you might notice is I have other things like sitting around what I'm assembling here. And there are other things that are going to be in that scene. And the reason is like this guy right here. This is a skull on top of a couple of books. And I thought, this would be really cool to put in. But just out of frame down below, I've got this table. And this table, it also had use for it. So if I don't find something that fits like on what I'm working on, then like I did here, I just shift it over to something else. When I'm scratch building, I'm actually building out of my head. Sometimes I'll look at other images. Other times it's just from memories, and that's when it's the most fun. What we're building now is a little chemistry set. And funny thing, if you look at that little guy right in the middle, that little clear thing, that's a drill bit in there. So I was trying to drill this out for the other piece in the upper left, and it broke in the acrylic, but I'm like, hey, that kind of looks cool. So I used it down below. All the other pieces are just like little pieces of scrap, this and that. And, I kind of soldered this stuff together, a little bit of a brass rod. And after painting, I think it looks pretty good in the diorama. once the first couple pieces are built, that just kind of spurs the ideas for the other pieces that will fit in that room. You know, they've set the tone not just for the viewer later, but for me as well. So now I just build each piece, kind of try to make sure it has its own story, so it's a complete thing, whatever it is. But that thing also contributes to the larger story. You know, it makes the believability of this scene or this area in the diorama a little bit richer because of the details that are in it. Here's the finished scene. Now I'm going to show you pictures of it without figures so you can see if the things that I added, those details in the background, really enhance the story. The whole upper level is, that's Captain Livens' office. So I wanted papers everywhere. There's even some on the floor. I wanted his bunk there. It's kind of, not made up. It's a little disheveled. He doesn't have a chance to make it. The bookshelves are up here. I kind of see that as like, that's where all the knowledge comes from. That's all his research. If he gets up in the middle of the night, I imagine him going to this big chalkboard, and writing down formulas, trying to figure stuff out. Down below, I wanted to show that this is where they're trying to figure out what fuel to use. It was a mixture of diesel and kerosene, but is that the first thing they thought of? So I thought it would be neat to have a little chemistry lab down here where they're actually trying to figure out what is going to go through this weapon that they're creating. Okay, so with that background, what does that do when we add figures? So in this instance, I wanted to create some tension, so this is how I did it. Above, we've got Captain Livens up on the catwalk, and he's posed kind of leaning over, and he's doing it almost in a pleading or an imploring way, trying to get the French commander, who's down below, to be, okay with what they're doing. He's just upset. He's come in there and he's got his arms crossed and, he sees all this stuff going on. And he's not been read into this, so he has no idea what's going on. So Captain Livens is just trying to do his best to tell him what he can, about what's going on here, what's not top secret. His assistant is trying to help him too. And so the whole scene is really trying to keep the French commander calm while they, try to finish this work that they're doing that's so important to the war and hopefully ending the war early. Next time, we're going to look at the Anzac Common Room and the Anzac mining operations. So that's this middle section right here. And so there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of fun stuff in there. And so I'm going to show you how I built that, how I put the details into it, and then also explain it. That I think is important. It is my sincere hope you have a wonderful day. I'm going to get out of here and do a little bit more modeling. Have a great day. We'll see ya.